All right, everyone, time for some combat radio, and we're going to stick with our disaster theme. You may remember a week or so ago, this legend, Jeremy Ratchford, one of Clint Eastwood's favorite actors from Unforgiven, Jersey Boys, one of the regulars on Cold Case, he stepped up with an idea of like, let's match wits on disaster films. And he came at us with Earthquake, starring one of our all-time favorites, Richard Roundtree. We love to connect the dots with Richard Roundtree. He did a lot of charity work with us, and we can with Earthquake. And then I brought Towering Inferno. This week, we're bringing you something that we're starting to really push the realms of reality on these movies when we start talking about them. They're getting pretty extreme. But this week's feature is Airport 77 with the intrepid Jeremy Ratchford. Jeremy, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing great, my brother. Yeah, as I kind of told you earlier, during COVID, uh, my then 10-year-old, we started watching disaster movies from the 70s because of COVID, and
Mm-hmm.
it was wild to watch the movies that I saw at his age. I guess
Right.
because what I would have been 12 when 77 came out, and I realized the whole airport theme. I realize how Mad Magazine has influenced my movie watching because I
Yeah.
remember they did a send up of the airport series. And at one point, they had a guy attached to a yo yo that they were yo yoing down at the plane to try and get him in. And that's the first one where the guy's got to climb into through the cockpit. I think that's maybe 75.
Yeah. I don't remember this in Mad Magazine. I didn't have a subscription. I would see it on occasion. Okay, so I know we can credit these movies with the movie Airplane
Yeah.
because that's really what gave these guys and Airplane 2, where they shoot off into space. The funny thing is, I almost doomed us, Ratchford, because my suggestion to match wits with you on this comparison of disaster flicks, this intrepid episode of Combat Radio where we compare disaster movies, I was going to suggest The Swarm, but then I realized I have to fucking sit through it. And I just didn't want to do that. I've seen The Swarm. Once was enough. But
I don't
we
even know
will
the
have to.
swarm.
What's that?
I don't know the swarm.
Okay, so you have to see it because, again, shot on the Universal backlot featuring a lot of our stalwarts. Richard Chamberlain. Richard Chamberlain never met a paycheck he didn't like.
Uh,
God bless him.
yeah,
And it's also he's in there with scientist Michael Caine. So
Michael.
it's it's impression heavy. And then Richard Widmark.
Fun.
What's that?
Michael Caine. Never
Yeah,
seen
yeah. And
it.
you can't say Michael Caine anymore without people trying to do an impression of Michael Caine. It's just one of those things you have to do it. Like it's like Dwight Fry when he says Dracula, everyone has to take a crack at Dracula. But it also has some of our favorites. Richard Widmark, who plays Richard Widmark. Of course, he's like an Air Force general, and barrage of other people and sort of these cameos that they would do when they mapped out the poster and the title was made. The letters were from a swarm of bees, and you have the little titles, and it gets less and less important and prominent as you move down to, and also starring Lou Ferrigno as well. In this case, it's people like Ben Johnson who have these sort of
Is,
sidetrack relationships to the
is,
disaster.
is that the one where they put the queen bee on a Volkswagen and they drive it into the Astrodome to lower the temperature?
No, I don't think so, but I think that sounds really good. God, maybe it is. It's been so
Was that
while since I've
killer
seen it.
bees? Because I
I
remember the
thought
killer bee
they
phenomena.
they kill it with sound, right? Is that the okay? The audience is going to cannibalize us now that we don't even know the fucking ending of the movie we're talking about. But the truth is I didn't want to sit through the Swarm, but now I'm going to sit through it because we're mystified about the ending. So the reason I discovered the Swarm was I was actually at the drive-in for another movie. I was a kid, and Sergeant Pepper's with the Bee Gees was playing on one screen. And once you get past the opening battle scene of Sergeant Pepper's, the movie goes into like this disco trip, and I'm like, I'm not interested. But in those days, you could turn around in the back seat of the car, and out the back was the Swarm, and it was the scene that opens the movie where a military van pulls up on an abandoned military base, and all these dudes like in spacesuits and flame throwing units jump out, and they're like, and you're like, I'm like, what is this behind us? Let's go see this. Anyway, craptastic. So Airport 77.
Yeah,
Uh, did you recommend this or did I doom us with it? I can't recall, but it's a fun movie.
doesn't matter. just even starting from the top of the movie,
Yeah.
the helicopter going down, which I think it must be Florida,
Right.
but it's got this weird wow, wow.
Does it?
It has a Miami Vice feel to the helicopter coming across. With this, the soundtrack is just like it's so weird.
Yeah.
Wow. It's ominous, but I don't know why. It ends up being Jimmy Stewart in his helicopter going to the museum that he's building that the art is going to come to. And it was wild watching Jimmy Stewart because it's very, very late in the days for Jimmy.
Yeah, it was late in the days for Jimmy Stewart. Okay, so this is a Jenny Lang's production, right? So he was, I think, tasked with matching wits with Irwin Allen over at Fox. I think that, the studio directive with him was give us some of these golden disaster movies, like let's set us up. So it does start like that. And Jimmy Stewart is on this mansion in what seems like Palm Beach, but it feels like they had him for one day or 2 days. Same with George Kennedy. It feels like the deal was 1 or 2 days.
Well,
So
and just the scene with him and George, like walking
yeah,
through the airplanes, the promotion for the Navy,
yeah,
and it's like I just loved the fact that there are two legends. This scene didn't mean anything.
hmm
It's one little moment I loved. Jimmy Stewart takes out a picture, says, "This is my daughter," and he just goes, "Beautiful girl." And there was no, it was just so clean and so nice. And you could see kind of Kennedy going, "I'm working with the legend. We got
yeah.
this, we got this 2 minute scene together that really doesn't impact the movie at all, but you get to see Kennedy on screen with Stewart. I just loved it. And you can't have an airport movie without Kennedy.
Yeah, you can't. You can't. And I think they recognize that and they went after him for the 1 or 2 day deal. Again, Kennedy is another one of these actors that never met a paycheck he didn't like.
Yeah.
I mean, he would be doing Death Ship 1 week in Italy with a cast that was going to be completely dubbed or something of the equivalent to that, and then come back and do Airport 77. And I love how they tag them all with years,
Yeah.
right? Airport 7, was it 75 and there's 79? And there's four
Yeah,
disaster
I don't
movies.
know. I know there's 75.
Right.
Uh, I still think George Kennedy, my favorite performance of his is oh God. It's
So
um
while you're thinking, I'm gonna say for me, it's Sons of Katie Elder when he gets hit in the face with the 2x4 by the Duke.
Hey!
okay.
That's one of my favorite Kennedy moments. It's not his
Modern
best performance,
Romance.
but Modern Romance.
Modern Romance.
Yeah.
Because he plays himself. It's Albert Brooks. And we got to do that one at some point because Modern Romance is one of the funniest.
Mm.
There's a 10-minute lewd scene. He takes a lewd given him by Bruno Kirby, and he does this. He's on the phone for 10 minutes, and I think there's only one cut. So it's just this running monologue of him getting higher and higher and not knowing it, and it's funny as hell.
In this movie, when they come up with when they locate the plane. All right, so let's backtrack. This is a heist film at its core, right? And a pretty good one. It's kind of on the level of Die Hard, right? It's not the heist that makes the most sense, but it's the heist that makes the most sense on the screen, I think, for the audience. This is clearly a heist that should have been triggered on the ground, but for whatever reason, these guys put this elaborate heist together to rip off priceless works of art that are also being shipped down on this special aircraft. And the work they must have put in and the planning they must have put into this heist is pretty extreme. So they get on board as basically waiters, and have clearly rehearsed this thing, know what's going on, know what their objectives are. It also, I got to tell you, this brings to light the cinematic art rather, of knocking someone out, where they're always kind of knocked out with ease and for the appropriate amount of time before they wake back up. In this movie, they actually kill a guy doing it.
Yeah.
They go to knock him out, and
Hit him too hard. He's dead.
yeah. And that's just we know that's convenient for the script's sake. The security guys, now he's out of the picture. So but I've always, even in Bond films, I'm always like, I've only knocked a guy out once, and I felt so bad about it. I actually got him to the emergency room at Cedars. So it's a kind of it was a jarring thing for me to experience. But like in these movies where they're just like, boom, to the back of the head, and the guy's like, oh, boom,
Well,
conveniently.
do you remember there was a time, I think it's in and around this time too, where the karate chop. I
Yeah,
have never seen anyone use a karate chop like, ha, and knock someone down, like gone, out.
the karate chop to me is as mystifying in the art of knocking someone out as I would say the Vulcan nerve pinch.
Yeah.
Like how does this work? So they knock this guy out. What they do is,
Well, and they have one cop,
yeah.
one cop on this plane full of priceless art. That's their security.
And I think when he's asked if he's a cop, his response is kind of, or something, or maybe, or sort
The
of.
little kid, are you a policeman? Well, I used to be. He's like, did you arrest anybody? He goes, well, a long time ago. If I come back, will you tell me all about it? Sure, kid.
Right. Right. So they're transporting art and also sort of what's supposed to be like a dynasty class of passengers. This is a luxury liner. It's supposed to be state of the art. And all these guys are on there where, of course, the one African American guy is the bartender. And they're sitting there, and there's like a lounge, there's like I think even a blind Stevie Wonder inspired piano player just riffing,
So
like
that
doing
guy, that he was, I'll get his name, because he had this amazing stay back then.
did he?
Where is he?
So I love
Oh,
the set of this movie too.
Tom Sullivan.
Yeah.
Tom Sullivan was on everything in the late 70s. He was the
Huh.
blind, he was the, because he's blind, but he was the blind guy in everything.
He so even that is like a stunt casting move. Like even the guy who's playing the piano, and I think gets killed by his own piano, is someone of note. I mean, this is the only time I've ever seen a airplane set with what I think is shag carpeting, right? Or something very. So all these people, they get on, okay, like often happens, they get on this plane and their personal sort of conflicts come out. Their past relationships come out, their feuds come out, I'm going to hate somebody 1 minute, but I'm going to love them when at the point of risking their lives or death, or we're going to make amends. It's that kind of cast. And I think that's my first problem with it. I'm going to throw it to you, Ratchford, because I don't really find anybody in the movie so very likable to begin with. They're all kind of these taxing personalities that you and I have been around at enough Hollywood parties that make us say, "Get me the fuck out of here," and I'm going to go down to the whiskey. So, that's kind of who I saw these people. It's Lee Grant and it's Brenda Vaccaro and
I will
Christopher
say,
Lee.
just on those two, Lee Grant is incredible.
Well, she's good.
As disgusting as a character as she is,
Yeah.
you feel for her, and her presence. She just walks in the room and you go, oh fuck. There's a whole bunch of trouble going on in her, and she goes back and forth, but I couldn't take my eyes off her. But then there's
Yeah.
Brenda Vaccaro, who was only shot. The only scene you kind of see her is when she knocks Lee Grant out because she's trying to get off the plane. But I don't know
Yeah.
what it was with Brenda. It was only head and shoulders in every fucking scene. And the thing I have with her is sort of like Mad Magazine. Back in like the I guess early 80s, late 70s, she did, I believe it was a tampon ad in Canada. I don't know if it ran.
Yeah, you told us.
And she does this. Hi, I'm Brenda Vaccaro, and I'm here to talk about and her breathing. Andrea Martin did a riff on it, and now I can't watch her without seeing Andrea Martin doing a riff of her.
We paid homage to Andrea Martin in the past because she was just a legendary. She still is a legendary talent from SCTV and Club Paradise, other things. Was that because Vaccaro was a smoker? Is that why she, had that cadence?
She's like her the majority of her career has been voiceover, lots of
Yeah.
cartoons, stuff like that. And I don't know how she became who she became. Uh, and I still really don't know what the fuck her job on the plane was.
Yeah, I thought it was stewardess, but okay, so getting back to so these characters are on this plane
Yeah.
with this art, with these thieves disguised as waiters. That's your setup essentially.
Well,
And
and
now they're flying.
why the guy puts on the mustache, like he has a
Yeah.
disguise to get through, and then they switch suitcases. I was like, there didn't seem to be a reason for all these disguises because they just kind of walk through anyways.
Um
To get nerve gas on.
when I was working in John Milius's office at Warner Brothers, we always referred to moments like that as like Caesar's bags of intrigue, where it's things that you pull out of like your creative setup just to kind of make people think like, oh, he's in disguise and he just swapped suitcases. And sometimes there's really no point to it other than to kind of keep you engaged from A to B to C.
Yeah.
And because I was thinking that too, I'm like, why? First of all, all right, the scenes that's always missing from these meetings is the planning scene that would probably be very interesting and comedic to follow, which is when these guys get together at like the frolic room and go, all right, I got an idea.
Yeah.
So my friends hired me to work on this Super 747 or whatever the plane class is. It's like an S1 Sierra in the movie or something is how they refer. It's going to be loaded with art. Why everyone knows this fact is beyond me, but I know it and I'm telling you. So what I think we do is we get in disguise, we hijack it, but we're going to need nerve gas. So we're going to need to cut the oxygen tubes in this craft and channel our like sleeping agent in, knock everyone out. We pack it up. We land the plane in some remote World War II era air base, Navy base, get the art off, transport it out, and we're home free. Instead, like somebody should put their hand up and be like, well, why the fuck don't we just hit the warehouse?
Yeah.
No. This is much better. We'll get a free flight out of it. And it does take place for added mystery at the time when it was mysterious. And for some people, it still is. The plane goes into the Bermuda Triangle.
The triangle
Disappears.
They've lost.
Disappears from the
We
radar.
lost Sierra 2-3. We lost Sierra 2-3.
Yeah. So that's your setup. And of course, the plane hits some sort of like an oil rig or something that they
Derek in the middle, and I think it had some lights on it because he sees it.
Yeah, he sees it, can't pull up.
They can't, the Navy or anybody doesn't get a report of something hit an oil derrick. Because like, we'll never find this plane. We'll never find this plane. Like, well, we got an oil derrick that just got fucking punctured by something large in the sky. Hey, we're missing a plane too.
Right. They missed their Bruckheimer moment because the whole thing should have erupted in an explosion. But
Right.
so
I got a 1 degree of separation. I work with Kathleen Quinlan.
oh, good.
And she's the young girl, like she's there. I don't know why, but then she's also in love with the piano player. And as he's dying, he feels her face, and then she gives him the earring, and then he's dead. It's like, and you gotta go. This is one of those movies too where I guess the book would have given all the story, but instead we've got a 2-minute scene of her crying as he feels her face and you're gonna live, and you just don't know why that was important, what she was doing there. She just like it was another one of those random relationships that goes, okay.
Yeah, they just have to cast some faces at times, right? And give them enough to do so the agent and everyone approves the deal, I suppose. I don't know. I didn't really love the cast in this the way I loved the Inferno cast, but the Inferno cast was a bunch of heavy hitters.
Well, I have to get going into that too. Christopher Lee.
He's good. Now he's an exception to this.
Duck.
Yeah.
Because he always looks like he's about to, step into Dracula.
Yeah. He does, and he acts very well. I mean, he looks genuinely annoyed at Lee Grant in this movie.
Yeah.
And I don't even know. I mean, almost to the point where you wonder if his annoyance was real. But he was such a pro, but he is clearly annoyed at Lee. And he's the experienced scuba diver conveniently because, okay, so when the plane goes down, The plane goes down in the Atlantic and goes underwater. Now, everyone should know the story, but if you've been living under a rock, this is the scenario. It goes down under the water, but the people are still alive underneath the surface on the plane. So the plan comes,
And supposedly 200 feet underwater.
yeah, which, do you think it was 200 feet?
No,
Because Lemon's,
you can see it, the nose touches, and they show a picture of the tail, the top of the tail still up.
yeah.
Uh, but it's like that, and it kind of go, and then when that plane flies over it, you see that thing shimmering. It looks like it's in 40 feet of water.
Yeah. Which would make me think my strategy at 40 feet would be we're going to let it fill up and we're going out the hatch.
Yeah.
Um,
But instead
So-
they get Christopher Lee, and I love that scene too. It's like, I'm gonna touch these wires, that door's gonna open, and get ready because hell's coming with it. And then it's
That's
like,
where I'm
"Oh,
going."
perfect." So Christopher Lee goes right in front of the door.
yeah,
Right, and then bam!
it's exactly, it's Captain, take me with you. I'm an experienced scuba diver. But when he's down there, he has to be told everything. And you would think that he would assume the squad leader role and say, this is what we should do and this is where we should be. But he doesn't. Lemon, it's a Jack Lemmon vehicle, so he calls the shots on the rescue move, which is to get Lemon out with a buoy and a raft and a
The other thing,
transmitter.
one of my favorite Lemon moments too, after the first carnage, and it's Bedlam, and he's putting a turn. Give me your belt, Darren McGavin. God love him. I love Darren McGavin. Nothing.
We can't get away from Darren McGavin in this week, can we? He's been coming up in every movie.
But he puts a tourniquet on a guy on the floor, and he turns to somebody and goes, "Hey, hold on to this and release it every 5 minutes, and then do it again." And walks away, and the guy goes, "Sure." Instead of like, "What? I'm just a pat. What?"
Yeah.
Yes, I saved that man's leg, and now I'm. And when he's walking through too, there's a woman bent over, and he just puts his hand on her shoulder and then keeps walking, like doesn't even say, "Are you okay?" It's just like, I'm touching you like Moses, and now I'm moving on.
So McGavin, who is one of our favorites around here, though I hear he was difficult to work with. He had done A Christmas Story, obviously the dad. He was Kolchak, one of our favorites.
Bullshit.
When he's introduced in the hangar with Jack Lemmon, they have the strangest walk where McGavin is pressed on his shoulder as if he's shoulder directing him to an exit. And almost like he was the DP, like lied to him and said, "You're out of frame if you step to your right." So
Yeah.
as the camera drops back, I mean, they are like uncomfortably like pinned together walking, almost like it's a mine routine,
Yeah.
you know? And I was like looking at that going, what is he doing? Like crowding Jack Lemmon like that, almost like I felt like Yul Brynner and Steve McQueen, like it was one of those moves.
Mhm.
Like, let me just show you, you may be the star of this movie, but I'm the actor. Everyone, I'm fucking Kolchak, God damn it. And I don't know if that was the case. They may have been lifelong friends or they may have been misdirected, but it was, you know what I'm talking about? It's kind of an odd scene.
I got to go back through because the one I remember when they get off the plane and he goes to light up a cigarette, and then
Yeah.
he goes, "No, I don't smoke." He goes, "Well, at least I'm trying not to," or something like that. It was like,
Right.
and
Yeah.
he's got the, and it's the McGavin. You don't golf anymore. Like when he goes, like, "You're just retired." Not. He's got this little high pitched thing that he did. He did it all
Yeah.
for Jack. I love it. Emily, I can't. do
Yeah.
that."
His reactionary, voice and diction shifts quite a bit when he's like supposedly shocked by the question, and here comes his answer.
But he's also like the guys can do everything by saying nothing. That
Right.
face. And it's the same thing you can see with Jimmy Stewart too. Like they just propped him up on the bridge of a set, and it's like you're seeing them go in the water. Now they're getting out of the water.
There's a
One
couple of one of those moments, and there's a couple of them during the rescue where I'm surprised they put like Navy divers in the foreground because it really, I understand you're striving for realism, but it robs you of any chance of achieving it when you do that because clearly they're somewhere different. And I know where the majority of this was done, probably 400 feet from our office on the Universal backlot in that big pool where they did Pirates of the Caribbean 4 and all this Jaws 4 and all this stuff that calls for an expansive like ocean set, which is where I think they originally Oh man, everything. I think Universal wanted to do everything there, but they only did a few movies ultimately there because directors, I think, would veto it based on lack of realism. But they have it. They still have it. They still use it, I think, on occasion when they got something. God damn. But okay, so here's the thing. Um, for those of us who remember, if you took the Universal Studios tour in the late 70s or early 80s, this was a hallmark stop on it. They would stop. Now, Ratchford's from Canada, so I don't know when he got on the Universal tour for the first time, but in that Hardy Boys era, where if you know the two-part episode of the Hardy Boys, where they're solving a murder based around the tour, you would get off the tour at occasional stops, go into a soundstage, and they would demonstrate something like from the old Universal Monster Machine on one. It was like makeup effects. It was like the what is it? The Lee Majors $6 Million
Yeah.
Man. They had that. Yeah, they did that. And they also had, yeah, they'd also take you by the avalanche set they used where he fought Andre the Giant as a Yeti. And then one of them was the Airport 77 set where they would take people out of the audience. They would put you in a seat and then they would flood it, show you like this section of the set fuselage. It was open and they would show you the magic. And on the monitors, you would see what they were catching versus what you were witnessing as sort of like a deckhand, so to speak. Does that make sense? Do you remember that?
I think what I saw, I got down here 96.
Yeah, it was gone. It was gone.
They had a subway.
Yeah, that's still there.
Floods.
Yeah, that's still there. They haven't up. You talking about the subway that gets wrecked in the earthquake? That bit?
I don't know what movie it's from, but the tram stops and you're in a subway tunnel, like almost like you're on the
Yeah.
subway, and then water comes crashing down the stairs and filling up here and
Yeah, it's funny. We would go for walks there all the time because that whole the tram goes right by our office, and we'd go down there and you see the reaction of the people going in, like the new King Kong exhibit, which was like it's right by where the broken bridge part of the tour is.
Yeah.
And they come out and they're totally amped up, man. They're buying it. And it's all part of it. I mean, what's sad about the tour now is they destroyed what was Transylvania, and that was used for The Good Place. They got rid of all the old Sherlock Holmes, Dracula, Frankenstein sets, and I don't think they should have done it. I think they should have kept it. But I'm an enthusiast. So,
yeah. I
all
actually
right. What?
we were a stop on that tour on Cold Case. We were shooting in one of the older, like the building mock-up city kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of a really cool thing to know that it's not. And ladies and gentlemen, if you look to your left, that's a set of Cold Case.
Yeah.
Like, wow, I'm on the tour.
Yeah. No, that's a cool thing, man. And it's funny because they've had that tour for decades, but it took forever for other studios to catch on to that idea. And I remember when I first worked at Universal when I was 17, I was in the special events department. I remember a studio administrator saying, you never touch the trams because each tram is worth $40,000 or something essentially in terms of tickets and what people paid on concessions collectively. He said, you can do anything you want. You never get in the way of the trams. That turned out to stay true when we were based there, when we moved there in 2019 to start this operation. Hard to believe. Our guests were told you can go anywhere. You can walk down to Hill Valley. You can go to Transylvania. You can go to the old Spartacus set because there is a Spartacus set back there. But you never touch the tram. You can go through Mexican Town. That's what it's called, Mexican Town. But don't ever touch the tram. And it's funny that these trams they kept the studio going during dark times. Cats, possibly. I remember also going to the studio the day after Cats was released or the weekend after Cats was released, and it was completely deserted. And the joke was because everyone had been fired. Anyway, I don't know why I'm laughing at that. That's a terrible, terrible thing to joke about. But, it took Warner Brothers when I was at Warner Brothers starting in 2000. Their tour was like on a little golf cart. It took studios forever to catch on to the value of a studio tour to take people behind the magic and what that revenue would mean annually. But yeah, so this was a thing. You would go and you'd watch him do an Airport 77 setup and takedown, and it was pretty fun because this is a harrowing experience to me. Like the idea of being in a plane trapped underwater. You know, when I was 6 or 7 when this movie came out, that scared the living shit out of me.
As much as Quicksand?
Well, I don't think I thought of them in the same
I just
sort. I
remember as
don't.
a kid, all the jungle movies, it's like someone gets in quicksand, and as a kid, you're like, oh no, like, oh my God.
Yeah, no. Quicksand is bad, and it was even worse then. Especially when someone got tripped up in it. But I'm looking at it, going, now that I think about, it, I never looked at it and said, God, what a terrible scenario being in a plane trapped underwater. But is that worse than quicksand, or do I take my chances with the quicksand? I
Well,
don't
now
know.
you know that, you just kind of got to lie flat.
What's the best quicksand death scene?
Uh, ooh, it would have to be in a Tarzan movie. Johnny
You would
Wise.
think, right? You would think, right?
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with
Probably the classic, like The Hand.
yeah.
Totally. Terminator took that one, right?
They did, didn't they?
Oh,
God, I don't know the best quicksand death scene off the top of my head, but if I have to bounce to one quickly, I'm gonna say Southern Comfort when Stucky goes down. Lewis Smith is the actor, played that part, who told me the funniest Walter Hill story I think I've ever heard. But of all the Walter Hills, have you ever worked with Walter Hill?
I wanted to, man.
Oh, you're his type. I'm
Yeah.
surprised, actually.
I've been told many times, it's like, oh fuck, Walter would love you.
I
And
can't believe all the times you've worked with Eastwood, you never worked with Walter Hill.
I worked with or I hung out with Jerry Paris for a while. He was a stunt coordinator up in Canada, old
Hmm.
stunt guy, which is going to come back to this too. But type we're going to drag you, you're going to get dragged by a horse, and he says, okay, where's the rope? He was Pare's stunt double on Streets of Fire, which I love the movie. There's, problems all over the place with some performances and stuff, but I love it. Says this is a rock and roll fable at the beginning, and then the Ry Cooder tracks and the type going across, and it's all set up. But he turned to me and goes, fuck, I wish I had known you back then. You would have been perfect.
Yeah, that's an interesting movie to discuss, right? Because it's and I don't have this problem with it, but I've heard people voice this problem about it, that it's a movie that's not sure what it is. And that's not how I look at it, but I know people think like that maybe that movie initially was like a rock and roll musical that became an action flick when it landed in the hands of
Well,
Walter Hill. I don't know. The Radiators are in it.
on the footnotes of the album, which I had,
Yeah.
it's Soldier Boy or the Queen of it's all sort of like 50s lyric songs, but it's like the prom queen gets stolen by the leader of the pack, and Soldier Boy has to come
Mhm.
home and rescue her, and and it was just, and the soundtrack, every one of my kids was weaned in the belly. Listen to it, they all came out knowing tonight is what it's made to be, yo. Great fucking soundtrack. The Blasters
Yeah.
did
Yeah.
One Bad Stud. And the epic kind of that meatloaf style. They got two. Tonight is what it means to be young, and I got a dream of a fantastic soundtrack. And
Great sets. Great.
Diane Lane. Oh my God, I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Great cast too. Perry's done this show and we talked a little bit about it. Uh, he's a guy that's done some interesting movies. He was originally supposed to be Staff Sergeant Barnes in Platoon.
Oh wow.
He was supposed to be Staff Sergeant Barnes, and Jeff Fahey was originally cast as Sergeant Elias. However, my buddy Sonny Landham, who played Billy the Indian in Predator, and I use the term Billy the Indian because that's how he referred to the part.
Yeah.
He said he was up to be Elias because the part was actually the real guy was Native American. And he was up for Silverado and Platoon at the same time. And he didn't get either one. And he felt like it was because of his reputation. All right, so the stories about him are infamous. He's rumored to have security posted on his trailer during the shooting of Predator to keep him from fighting the rest of the cast. However, I never saw that side of him. So I can't really I don't know how much of that's like urban filmmaking folklore because I never once saw that in all the years I knew him.
Yeah.
But he said he was up to be Sergeant Elias. But according to a lunch I had with Perry in the Warner Brothers executive dining room. He said he was up to be Barnes and Fahey was going to be opposite him and Elias, but Tony Howard, agent, casting director turned agent at ICM at the time, talked him out of it because they had Houston Knights on the table, which was a series he would do with Michael Beck.
Uh-huh.
So she like said, "Hey, look, we have a series here. It's a smart play. It's like long Platoon went up and went down. That production ramped up and then was stopped and shut down and brought back, and it was a $6 million movie in the Philippines. So I guess Tony Howard, according to the lunch, told him, "Hey, look, it's long-term employment, Houston Knights, or it's a couple of weeks in the jungle with the crazy man, basically."
Yep.
You know, and Oliver Stone, by the way, did the Conan the Barbarian script with John Milius would ultimately direct, and they didn't speak over for 8 years over the changes Milius made to it. So that does kind of factor into the Oliver Stone-ness of the myth that is Oliver Stone. So maybe Howard had a point when she kind of said, you know, ultimately, you don't know how these things work out, right? Platoon became Platoon, but on the surface, it actually sounds, it's not the advice I would give or the advice I would take, but it sounds like strong advice from an agent. Do the series, star in a series, you know, and he did. And Houston Knights, well, it didn't do what people hoped, but you know, he's still an actor with a lot of gravitas, though. There's a quality about him that's absolutely solid. Have you worked with him?
No.
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
he did an episode of Cold Case.
did he?
Yeah, but I wasn't involved with him there.
No.
Yeah. He played a buddy of one of Catherine's love interests that is fucking up. I think they had to arrest him or whatever it was. I don't know.
I should point out that when he did the show, I mentioned this lunch and this Tony Howard story, and he appeared to not really be enthusiastic that I said it. However, I'm only saying it now in retrospect that I don't think Howard's advice was something sinister. I think that's actually the smart play. And he took the advice and they did what they did. And it's only because Platoon and Stone became that juggernaut that people kind of smile at it. But on the, you know, you undoubtedly too have been in similar situations where agents have said, "Hey, I don't know that you go to this place and do this thing versus this thing," right? Have you? I'm sure you've had those dilemmas production wise, haven't you?
I actually.
Or do productions go on hold to get Ratchford involved? We'll wait for Jeremy to finish his job.
The one that I missed out was The Town. I think The Town, not The Town.
Oh, with Affleck?
No, Matt Dillon and Tommy Lee Jones, set in the 50s about gambling. And I think we were just talking, she's in this movie. Lee Grant, I think it's Lee Grant, because I went deep on Lee Grant, saw she was in that, and I was supposed to be in the opening scene. The audition was a bunch of us playing craps, and then each one of us has to get into a fight with Matt Dillon. So it was just an audition for who's going to get that kind of the major part of that scene. And in my time, I actually picked Dillon up off the ground with one hand and put him against the wall. And I got the part, but I was shooting something else, this PBS special, highly, and they changed directors, and then the scheduling conflict happened, and I couldn't do the picture.
So how was Dillon?
He was good. Yeah, he came in, ran the scenes with us, and I think it's so funny. God, this is 30 years ago, maybe, I don't know, but he kind of respected the fact that I had lifted him up and done, like, I was going to make him look really good because he gets the better of me. But I showed him, and it's that's one of the things another actress told me I have the softest hands of anyone she's ever worked with, because I had to choke her out. And she didn't feel a thing, because it's like I'm very conscious of the stage fighting craft.
Yeah.
I went into looping on that one, and they said, "Oh yeah, Yancy Butler was here." She says, "You have the softest hands of anyone she's ever worked with." I was like, "Oh, wow, that's a nice little compliment."
Not everybody does. without
No,
going down that rabbit
oh
hole.
man,
Some people
I
are
have
ruffians.
I have been beat up.
By who?
Uh I was doing an NYPD Blue and I got arrested by Dennis and the young guy. The young guy was a bit rough, and I ended up having a rash on my face. And he said, "Well, what happened?" I said, "Well, it's a brick wall you're throwing me into." It's like,
Yeah.
face, it's the brick wall.
But I'm
And
taking it,
the guy,
baby, because I'm for realism.
and there was another guy that I always have to take the younger actors aside. So like, as when you're a journeyman actor, you play a lot of bad guys. So I've been arrested a lot of times, and actors don't know how to handcuff. I always
Okay.
mind the handcuffs. You put the hands, you hand the handcuffs to them behind their back, but I don't cuff you because it's just keeping you loose.
Mhm.
Um, and they don't see it anyways. And if they see it, there's an insert close up. But this kid was like, man, it's like, dude, you're killing my fucking wrist. And he's throwing me down on a pool table to boot. So I'm bouncing on. It's like, make the motion, I'll sell it. I had to tell it because at the third take, it was like, buddy, you're gonna break my
Yeah.
fucking open. You're going so nuts. But I also remember in the same NYPD Blue, one, Dennis Franz came up to me day one and said, "Hey, good to meet you. I'm Dennis." I said, "Oh," and he goes, "You want to run this?" And I was like, "That's a fucking pro. This
Yeah,
guy's
right. Right, right. As everyone should do, I think.
yes." And then there's a point where they handcuff me in a cell to terrify me.
Yeah.
And I'm handcuffed up like this, and they call cut, and I'm waiting because now they got to come and sorry, I just got a little turn my phone on.
That's Dennis Franz saying he's
I
got
got
a
to wait
job
for
for
the
you.
props guy to come in and uncuff me for another take.
Hmm.
Dennis Franz saw that and said to the prop guy, he could leave me with a key. And when they would call cut, he would uncuff me. And I learned so much in the few days I had with Dennis Franz about what it is to be a fucking pro. That guy, oh, I love that dude.
Well, what are some of the other bullet points that you took away from that for young actors listening?
Um, I had a director at one point in that same thing. He said, I don't know why actors are always complaining about not knowing their lines because you've got an hour in the makeup trailer, and you're
Hmm.
talking about this and done. And I did a show called Blue Murder up in Toronto. And I took that time when guest cast came in. It's like, we're here in the makeup trailer. I said, let's run. Let's run whatever we're doing today. And we would take half hour, whatever it was, while we're in the chair, running it back and forth, running it back and forth. Once we had it solid, then it's like, hey, Linda, da, 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 da. But
Hmm.
always, that was one of the, and on Cold Case, we did the same thing. We were constantly, let's just run this. I don't want to run it when I get on set. I want
No,
to,
and no one else wants you to either.
yeah.
Yeah. It is interesting, right? That some people, they like Jack Nicholson is famous for being an easy guy to work with,
Hmm?
exceptional on a set, but also having it down, fine tuned with all his potential options for a scene wired up and ready to go.
Yep.
He credits the Roger Corman school, and I think that's probably a wise thing to credit because Corman had no time, was doing a lot with a little. And I think that's great when actors get involved in that sort of level of cinema and start cutting their teeth. They learn that it's not a very luxurious process. Sometimes you better be ready. But anyway, getting back to we were talking to Walter Hill a moment ago, and I should tell that Lewis Smith has the quicksand death. And we should do a show on Streets of Fire, by the way. I should go back and check that out because I think there's people we both know in it, but I can't recall. It might even be Peter Jason, actually. I think he might be in Streets of Fire. I don't know. I have to look at it. But
Kathy Griffin.
that's
Kathy
right.
Griffin is the screaming concert member at the beginning of the movie.
Wow. Don't you love those kind of credits where you look back and people are getting their start and they're getting their break and they're getting their like 0.3 seconds of fame, that the editor managed to leave in, Um,
Well, and I think in that one too, the woman that is the DJ in what's the gang movie? Walter Hill's gang movie with the baseball player, all the different
oh,
gangs.
the Warriors.
Warriors. The woman that does she's the DJ, and all you see is the mic and her lips.
Hmm.
She's actually the subway driver at the end of Streets of Fire.
Oh, is she?
That says, no, the bombers have taken over, and this, that, and the other thing. And it was like, oh, I love that. It was like little.
So at one point, right, a fire in Steven Spielberg's beach house burned part of his neighbor's beach house, Walter Hill's, down.
Mhm.
And Mark Marshall, a mutual friend of ours who was Spielberg's assistant back in the day, ended up being the production supervisor on the Harry Potter and did a lot of things since, worked with Donner. Spielberg sent him down with a video camera to record it for the insurance company. And he walked up to like Walter Hill's front door, assuming he was going to be murdered. Like he had the camera, here, like Walter Hill cuts a certain image and he had the video camera, and here he's representing his boss, which is Spielberg, and Hill's house has been burned down by a mishap. And he's like, I don't know if I'm going to survive this day, but Walter Hill couldn't have been nicer. And the famous story I love is from Lewis Smith on Southern Comfort, where he goes, I had a question about dialogue. I just had one question about delivery. So I opened my page up to the script, and I walk over and I said, Walter, I just want to ask you about this line. And Walter Hill has the Sharpie. Yep. Takes the Sharpie right through the script and just goes, what's your question? Right through the line of time. Right through the line of time. What's your question? And he's like, I never went to him for anything else again. It was like, Walter Hill expects you to know what you're going to do. It's obviously at some point agreed upon, and you do it. And that's your part of it. He's got the other 90%.
I'll save my Eastwood story for our Eastwood Magnum Force gauntlet run, because Eastwood's the same way. Just do what you do.
I can't wait for that one because my old boss wrote Magnum Force and Dirty Harry uncredited. So I'm looking forward to and Dar Robinson was the stunt guy.
Okay, so that's here, full circle.
Yeah.
Watching Airport 77, watching the credits, Stan Barrett, stunt coordinator. What?
Mm-hmm.
Dave Barrett was a director on Cold Case. Lovely.
There you go.
I love him. But I sent him a text saying, hey, I'm doing a podcast on Airport 77. I see your dad's name. He's like, ah. And another tribute. This is like a whole other barrel of monkeys, I guess. In those water scenes, those stunt guys, they're just getting thrown around.
Mm-hmm.
And just a little shout out, why the fuck they are not recognized in the Academy Awards, because their contribution to every fucking movie is legendary. Like you can't, I mean, you'll be able to find a couple movies that don't have stunts, but for the most part, those guys put their life on the line, even with the high tech and all that shit, and they do not get recognized.
It's absolutely disrespectful, and the Academy's always been its own worst enemy. I mean, it was designed to pat them themselves on the back. They do that. They manage to market themselves like it's the fucking 10 commandments of entertainment. And at the end of the day, these people that risk their lives and in many ways are the stars of these movies, they don't even get any respect. And the argument that somebody made at Warner Brothers once upon a time for that, we've been lobbying for a stunt, not us personally, everyone has. It seems like everyone has, but we've been lobbying for an Oscar for that category for a long time. But, the Oscars actually, they already started disrespecting certain journeymen and certain tradesmen when they split the awards off and said, well, Wednesday night, we're going to give you guys your awards.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look, if this is the most prestigious night in entertainment, then it's okay if it's 3.5 hours long. People want to get their due and see what was achieved, what, where, how. And I remember being thrilled in the 80s, in early 80s, when Empire Strikes Back got a visual effects award, and those guys came up and they showed clips of what they had done or of them doing it behind the scenes. I liked all that. Now but then the network says you got to can it in 2 hours or whatever the broadcast runtime is. Now I haven't watched it. religiously in a long time.
I
You
haven't
know,
watched in years. I don't watch any award shows anymore. I don't.
I really lost I started to lose my faith in it when they started giving everyone 30 seconds and then they'd play you off like here's the biggest night of your life and your award. Now get off in 30 seconds. I didn't like that aspect to it, but when they had the one year when they put the podiums in the back so certain people couldn't even go up on stage to say thanks, they'd just reverse the cameras and they would accept their award like on the back of the stairs. Remember that?
I,
And then
yeah, I
and
don't.
then they bring in these play-by-play announcers, and Glenn Close was one of them. And she'd be like, "This is Jeremy Ratchford's fourth nomination. He's won the Oscar once." And I'm like, "What the fuck?
Yeah.
What are we doing? Welcome to the 75th Academy Award." It's just such. It's just become such. I guess
Well,
it's
and then not to
become
belabor it,
everything I hate about the business.
but when Will Smith
Yeah,
didn't get kicked out instantly and then saved it to come back, and it's like, no, I'm done.
yeah.
I'm
See,
done.
that's the thing. I could not believe that he did that and was allowed to stay.
Yeah.
That was unreal.
Yeah.
And he honestly like the to litigate it post after the fact is to me, that's what a lot of people do, but no, he threw a punch at somebody and was allowed to take his seat, win the Oscar, and make his speech. And then he was seen having a great time at the party afterwards. I mean, he punched a guy.
Yeah.
Now we've all been there. I've never felt good about it, but I mean, to do that and to take a seat and to be like, I've still won, absolutely unacceptable, man. It was completely ridiculous. Although I gotta love Dave Chappelle's take on it. Did you see him on it?
No.
So Chappelle went on tour. So he and Rock went on tour, and Rodney Barnes is a writer for Chris Rock, by the way. One of our associates here loves him. Chris Rock, undoubtedly, the way any human being would be, was he was upset about this. This had happened. Not only did it happen, but it happened on a global stage. So he spent months and months and months kind of contemplating it, processing it, seeing how his comedic therapies would play into working it out. And he was, according to Chappelle, he was relatively quiet about it. Chappelle gets up at the Hollywood Bowl, and I was at the Hollywood Bowl the very next night for John Mulaney with my kid, my family. Happened to sit next to some of the LA Ghostbusters of all things. So Chappelle goes up and somebody attacks him, right? Did you see that much of it? Somebody jumps on stage and
Oh, yeah.
makes a run at Chappelle for whatever his reasons were. And again, nobody approves that. You don't fucking stage dive a human being. So he makes a run at Chappelle. Rock runs out, takes the mic, and says, "Was that Will Smith?" And Chappelle tells it. Everyone's fallen out of their seats. Jamie Foxx, all the celebrities, whoever, the Rams, everyone's fallen out of the seats into the aisles, laughing, laughing, laughing. It's hilarious. And Chappelle just looks at Chris Rock and goes, "Damn it, this is my assault." Damn it, this is my assault. I'm supposed, like you. How dare you steal my thunder? I thought it was kind of funny
Did
the
you
way he played it off.
see Chris Rock's next special?
I did, and it seemed very therapeutic for the guy. I can't
And
claim
his
to think it
last
was the
line,
funniest things. What was it?
line,
What
he
was it?
said, "My mom always told me, don't fight in front of white people." And it has
Good advice.
all the weight, all like that summed it up unbelievably, because he took it and sat with it and has dealt with it and all that stuff. And when it came right down to it, he just said, "That's what my mom told me." Boom. Powerful. Fuck.
Well, I think he was thinking like all of us, like, what is happening here? Why is he closing in on me?
Yeah.
Like in this setting, he's not possibly going to do something like this. Is a bit Smith has in his mind, right? That's what I would have thought. That's what I thought watching it. Like,
Oh, and he's towers over him.
yeah, that's the other thing that got me too, because we all know if The Rock made the joke or Momoa, Will Smith is staying in his seat.
Yeah. Yeah.
But also, to me, the joke wasn't.
Oh, you know what? I never looked at it that way. Yeah, you're damn right.
Yeah, he got up because it was Rock, and he felt good about his chances. But I just remember thinking, like, it wasn't even really a joke that was that cutting. It wasn't really. She said things about what she's going through. Like, I couldn't understand it. It's not like, with all the things I've heard, people have to deal with and take. That was one of the things where I'm like, that got him out of his seat. And we all know there's more at stake than what Rock said that triggered it. But still, I mean, it's the art of controlling your emotions, right?
Come after Ricky Gervais, and he has just ripped people.
Yeah. Yeah. See, it's interesting. Wouldn't it be interesting to see how Ricky Gervais would have handled that? Or any other host
Yeah.
in a situation like that? I kind of wonder about that now.
Who knows? Yeah, that was crazy.
I mean, it's an ugly moment. I mean, it's sad that the way it was handled, it's sad that it happened, but it's sad the way it was handled for me anyway. I mean, it was like, all right, you made a mistake. You said something. You don't deserve to get punched, but if you're going to punch him, you're fucking out of here, bro.
Yep.
You're done. Nowhere do you let the guy stay. At the Frolic Room, there was a bar in my old neighborhood called like the Memphis Bell or something like that, or the Yukon Bell. And the joke was you walked in through the door and you went out through the window. That was always the joke of this place. But this was a dive bar, man. And even dive bars has their standards. You start something, you're tossed. Every place has that standard. You don't get to punch somebody and have it take a seat. You don't get to walk into a fucking Shakey's and punch someone and take your seat. So that was really kind of appalling that nobody really knew what to do or take the initiative because, you know, Hollywood is so scared of perception, you know, that it's led to inaction in a situation like that. If I was sitting next to Will Smith, I'd be like, bro, you got to get out of here now. That's totally unfucking called for.
Or I would leave.
Yeah. Like, you got to go. Like, at least have the class to show yourself out if no one has got the courage to ask you. You shouldn't be here. That's wrong. And the cameras are going to fixate on you now anyway, which means they're going to look at me because I'm sitting next to you. So get the fuck out of here.
Yep.
Anyway.
Or I would fucking leave.
Yeah. Well, you know what, man? You should have been nominated for several Oscars. And the fact that the Academy has never acknowledged your work is inoffensive in itself. So fuck this Will Smith thing. I don't want any part of what the Academy's up to. Yeah. They obviously don't know what's what. And it's funny because now I stepped out of the children's hospital and the situation got the better of me, not to the extent of this Will Smith mess, but I stepped out of the children's hospital at UCLA where there's a 3-year-old waiting for a heart transplant. And if you know anything about when you battle medical challenges with your kids, there's a sense of solidarity with all parents. Yeah. And I walk out and I'm just stunned by what the world, we all know self-centeredness is a thing, but I walked out of the children's hospital on this day and I'm thinking, like, what do I say to encourage people to maybe get involved with issues or challenges outside of their wheelhouse that they can pursue or help correct? And I'm on Facebook and everyone is talking about the fucking Barbie movie and that this director got snubbed. And at the end of the day, Mattel, by the way, who walked back the deal for $49 million to put their name on that fucking children's hospital building, never paid for it. They make $1 billion on fucking Barbie, essentially. Well, the studio made it, but some of it's theirs. And the argument is the director wasn't nominated for a movie that's about a plastic fucking doll. Mm-hmm. And I was just outside my fucking skull, Jeremy. I was just so pissed off. And I just made a post and said, all of you fucking guys are fucking idiots. You're complete fucking nimrods. You don't know anything about the world around you. Who the fuck? Because people were really trying to, there's people that are angry about the lack of, that this director got nominated. And then there's people that want to pretend to be angry to kind of win favor with the people that are angry. Yeah. Like, let me show you how angry I am. Like, people were taking their Oscars and like taping her name on like a plastic thing. Like, there, I fixed it. No, shut the fuck up. The movie, look, I went to the movie. My family had a good time. They laughed. It was fun. But that's all it is. That's all it is. This movie, there's a Native American actress nominated for the first time. Can you fucking believe it's 2023? It's 2024, but it's like, I get so fucking appalled at these guys and these people. And that's why I'm, you know, basically not interested, and no one really is interested in me in the business. I just can't fucking take it. Sorry. Back to you. Airport 77. Yeah. I don't know, bro.
Oh,
and I don't mean to.
Brenda Vaccaro.
And bro, I'm sorry. I went on that tirade with you here. You deserve better from me.
No, brother. It's, you know what? And just kind of my response to that too is the pendulum is so far out there. everybody seems like, I look at society kind of right now, or for the last few years, it's like Chicken Little. They're running
Yeah.
around screaming that the sky is falling, and you want to go, well, it's not.
No.
And if you look around, we're not oh yeah, it's a mess. And then the self-righteousness of our business, it's
Yeah.
like, oh, even to kind of go into like, the Harvey Weinsteins of it all and all that shit. It's just like, oh God, I'm a member of that society. I just want to put out good movies. And
Right. Me too.
talk about good movies. And even this Airport 77, it was
Yeah.
hysterical. Like it was enjoyable as
Mhm.
much as it was ridiculous.
Yeah, look, Barbie was fun, but that's what it was. It was a
Yeah.
fun 90 minutes or whatever the runtime is on it, and that's it. I'm past it. It's not going to change you know, the gravitational pull of the planet around us or human nature. But to be honest with you, like you made a movie about a fucking doll. And honestly, it's not the best movie about the fucking doll I've ever seen. Anyway, because there's been better movies about dolls, but
Well, and as you
speaking,
pointed out, I didn't realize, hey, pony up and buy that fucking hospital. Like I remember I wrote one when one of the Avengers, or one of the huge superhero, I think it was the Avengers, and it made $8 billion or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
And I posted on Facebook, hey, thanks for saving the universe yet again.
yeah,
And with the bounty you received, could you do something about Flint's water? Could you help our education system? Could you help our medical?
right,
Like,
right.
take some of that $80 billion and
Hmm.
invest it in the people that are coming to your fucking movie.
That's what I think too. I totally break it down like that. Like, look, you ask all these people to buy a ticket or buy it streaming, fucking kick back to the people that are suffering.
Yep.
Yeah, this is what I don't get. Like Elon Musk to me is a guy that should be able to process that. Look, if you want to be perceived in the right way, do the right thing. It's not fucking, Egyptian hieroglyphics we're deciphering here. Do something kind on the scale you can handle, and you
Don't
will be
build a
rewarded.
rocket that takes you into weightlessness for 20 minutes.
Right.
Take
Don't
the
shoot a car into
billions to do
space.
something good.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. So, yeah, put it into, good disaster movies. Can you believe they haven't remade Airport 77 yet, though?
You know what? I was thinking they've got to start doing them again.
Yeah, yeah. I can't believe they haven't remade it. I didn't love the model, but I kind of loved the model. You know what I mean? Like the model I didn't buy into the model at all, but I kind of loved that they did the model in the tank bit. Like I was looking at when the plane goes down and hits the surface of the ocean. And by the way, too, that is the cleanest ocean divers have ever had to, do a rescue mission in. By
Oh no, sorry,
talking about the tank,
I was
obviously, but
thinking about this too. When they raise the plane up, like, we got to get these people out of here, and those are real Navy SEALs. Those
yeah,
guys coming in on the boats, because they get in and out of the boats and they get off stuff in there. Da, 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 da. And then
right,
Jack Lemon, every once in a while, you got to go. Is that Jack or is that's stunt double? Yeah, because he's too fluid.
yeah,
But when they get Olivia de Havilland coming out on the wing of a plane and they got to throw her onto a boat, and I'm going, those days, like that rescue sequence, or how many days it took, would have been insane.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
Olivia, like, it's, oh my God, what a trooper! You would have been soaking wet, coming out of the doorway onto the plane into a boat, and then the guy I felt the most bad for was the bartender with the broken leg, because all he did was like, ah!
yeah.
And I always thought the same thing in Towering Inferno. The amount the people in that elevator that Steve McQueen saves the guy and all, but you're just going to be doing take after take of.
Yeah. That's where they blow it, right? You're I'm like, I'm really kind of bored with this cast in this movie. I misremembered this. I remember being enthralled by this as a kid, but I'm looking at it this time for your sake. And I'm kind of bored with the cast. Other than Christopher Lee, who I liked in his stuff, I'm kind of looking at it going like, all right.
Well, the
People
other
are
one, like Jack Lemon, to me, I don't know what it is, because I got to study some more of it, because I think, isn't he, was like Willie Loman is kind of
Yeah,
I-
yeah, yeah.
That's his thing, I think. But he does it in the beginning with Brenda Vaccaro when it's like, she says, "You can't help me. I can't help you. I can't help you. Well, I'm the guy that when I get on the plane and everything, when you think I can't help you." He's got this, he does it,
Yeah.
he does 3 or 4 of them. Even that's like, you need me to go down there. You're not a scuba diver. Well, I'm an amateur scuba diver, and you don't know, so I've got to go down. And it's just like he does the same
So
batch kind of,
okay.
and in the end is that's why I got to do it. I'm
Yeah,
standing up for myself.
we're at the rescue phase of the movie, right? And that's interesting that you mentioned that moment because George Kennedy had like the 1 day or 2 days on the movie because he was told by the Navy, we need you out there. And his excuse is, I'll be more used to you here when I, tell you about the stress points on the aircraft, et cetera, et cetera. But that's the same argument essentially that Lemon makes to go down. He's like, you need me down there to know the stress points. And I'm pretty sure the Navy can figure it out, right? I'm pretty sure but like they communicate with the people on the plane with a whiteboard, essentially, right? They tell
Yeah,
them
yeah,
what's happening
yeah.
through the window.
What
But
was
how are
it?
you
Tie
gonna
yourself down. We raise the plane or something. It's like
right? And they
Tarzan
do,
talk.
yeah, and then
Things
they do
go
this
up,
thing.
people safe. Hold on.
They actually, of course, and the movie makes a point of saying that the scenario was concocted by the filmmakers, but the rescue methods are real, which is pretty impressive because they do. That's the coolest thing about the movie for me is how they resurrect this thing from the deep. But I got to tell you too, man, like they make a point of saying don't put too much stress on it. And as soon as they get that thing up, everyone jumps on the wing of this thing. The rescue guys jump on the wing. And I was thinking when they're doing that, like just open the door and have them jump in the water
Yeah,
and boat them from the surf. But everyone, like bodies, like dozens of bodies are on this wing. And of course, one of the things snaps and that put the clock goes back into effect. This movie is clock mastery. I will
yeah,
say that for it. They mastered the art of suspense and the clock in this. And of course, your girl, Vaccaro, gets blown back into the hatch, and the only way is up. Like you can't get her
yeah.
back to the hatch because the water's coming through with too much force. Although I wasn't really convinced. Maybe you were when she gets blown back and the water's coming in. I'm like, I think I could probably still have made it out through the hatch, or
No, but
just let it
obviously
fill up and I'm
that's
going
going to
out.
have another. We got to go up, and I'm going to save you, and blah blah. And he takes his tank off. I'm
Yeah,
going to go into
yeah,
an airplane that's filling up with water, but I got to take my tank off.
yeah, yeah.
So cute.
I guess cute is the word, right? He does save her,
Yep.
and
And then we get another shot of the Navy helicopter dropping the thing, and then you
right,
get Jimmy Stewart going, "Hey, they're safe!" Like it's and when he's not got the binoculars. That's the thing I always love. It's after seeing these two, and then going back and watching Airplane because the first air I think it was Airport 75.
yeah,
It's incredible because there's like 35 minutes of this sad sack's life in the beginning. And then he goes to the airport and he buys life insurance, which you could do back then. You could buy life insurance when you got on a plane.
right,
But they show this whole sad sack. But this is where you get the red zone is for loading and unloading.
yeah, 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 yeah.
All the airplane spoofs. And even what you said there too. The the plane going in the water and all the airplane, like with the little smile on the like that airplane becomes like almost like a little puppy.
Yeah.
It's so funny. But I did love too some of the I guess the artistry of just the airplane going through the sky at night. It was
I
like,
did too.
yeah, it's
I did
kind of
too.
very romantic and back in 77, you didn't see like the cutout, it was like it was a really well done special effect.
Yeah, I really like the clouds actually. I was looking at the clouds saying they did a great job on that with the plane going down and in concept, this is a movie I would go for, right? I can't speak for you, but if it landed on my desk at Warner Brothers, I'd be like, this can be intriguing. Let's do this.
Well, and this leads to Die Hard.
Yeah, it does.
Like Die Hard was Alan Rickman redefined the villain
Hmm.
and the heist. And at the end, when he says, "I'll be on a beach collecting 20%. And he's
Yeah.
got an answer for everything instead, and it all made sense. He knew it. I'm going to turn this off, ladies and gentlemen. I give you the FBI.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
he had everything, and you go, wow, that's great.
You know, speaking of the FBI, when I was at Warner Brothers, it was pretty much an unwritten rule with them that they would not cooperate with a movie as technical advisors unless the FBI made the arrest in the movie. They were an automatic no. We would still send them stuff, but they were an automatic no if they didn't make the arrest or if people got away with it or if they looked like clowns. But with this, I think the Navy probably embraced it right away because they thought, oh, look at this. It's a rescue mission. The Navy comes in and saves the day. And I don't know if those are actual Navy officers in the movie. Sometimes, you know, we cast the real personalities. But they do make a pretty dynamic rescue. It's pretty involved.
Well,
Even
all the
when
guys
Disney.
on those boats are the real deal.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
problem with them is, why did they have flesh-colored bathing suits?
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
But even when Disney did 20,000 Leagues, they knew to superimpose some fish, right? I was like looking at it going, that's the one thing. There's no seaweed, there's no murkiness. That's clearly they're in a tank.
And a sandbar.
Yeah.
And it keeps inching, like you never see the drop off. You don't
Yeah.
know how far it's going to go.
Yeah.
But it's
But
just,
the poster.
Just cut to that shot of the plane going, oh.
Do you think they popped the champagne when they saw that poster before the movie was even finished and released? With the poster with the 747 underwater, but just barely underwater with the tail out, and then like the cliff and the lights on. Like, you think I bet all the executives at Universal were celebrating, you know, going, yeah, we got him with this. And they did. The movie was a hit as far as I understand it.
Yeah, well, that was like, what, 5 or 6 years of those disaster movies. They were fun fantasy.
Yeah. Now let's put together our own disaster movie. All right. What's our scenario, Jeremy? What do we got? Well, we have a kid who can't see, a blind kid who's going to need some help later, but we'll have its hero moment. We're going to have.
Well, see, they do that in Airplane with the little girl and the nun keep knocking her IV out. Like,
we are going to need
more of those too. Where are those guys?
We are going to need. Yeah, we're also going to need some nuns and or a priest.
Yep.
Right. We're going to need that. We're going to need a guy who probably was thrown out of the Navy or some sort of contracting, building, electrical sort of job in disgrace, but can redeem himself within the scenario, right? If the rescue, we need that.
Was told not to.
What's that?
He saved the village, but was told not to.
Yeah, right. He did the right thing for the human race, but was shamed for it. And then, of course, we're going to need the Native American from the Village People, who probably wasn't Native American. We're going to need him in costume. Why? Because he's on his way to a Vegas show, doesn't have time to get ready there. He's going to take the stage immediately. And that guy's going to remain in his Native American chief costume for the entire movie. Who else?
I thought could be kind of enjoyable. Maybe we should write this. But it's a film crew that's on location at whatever, and they're all on the plane on the way back, and the plane goes down, and you've got Castaway with a film crew. So you'll have, all of a sudden, society is there structured, but all of a sudden you've got, well, yeah, you're no longer my boss. You're the producer, but I know how to build. I know how to do that. And you would have this new, who takes over, who leads the way.
Right.
You know, a starlet that can't, well, now you'd have to have a starlet that's actually a Green Beret who can save herself.
Of course.
And then they'd probably go after the actor, making him, you know, a little fraidy cat. But you'd have this whole breakdown of society from a film crew.
Yeah, that's an interesting possibility. And actually, I would embrace that. But let's just say, hypothetically, for our airline disaster movie, if we decide to go with an airline and it does go down on an island, then what if on this island already is the characters from Lord of the Flies, but they're all grown up, those that have survived.
Ooh.
And they're like the cannibalistic element that the survivors have to. And what if, like, when it goes down, it passes over a little abandoned boat that's kind of like half capsized, but not quite underwater, and it's been there for decades. And it says the SS Minnow on the
Or
on
we
the
get
hull.
sort of a the original Island of Dr. Moreau, that last boat
Yeah,
scene
he's
where
there too. He's there too. And there's an old aircraft that's rumored to be Earhart's. Like this is like. Now here's the thing: none of these ideas, right, would go forward. But it is fun in a production meeting to just throw
actually
everything at
think
a
about
wall.
that though. What if this film crew crash lands on the island of Dr. Moreau? And all of a sudden you've got animal beasts, animal humans that are like, what the fuck was that?
And can we get Andy Richter to play the Brando character? Can we? Can we do that much? But you know what? We would have to cast real actors in these Moreau roles. Like we wouldn't be able to use makeup on them. Like we'd get hashtags. So we would have to reach out and we would have to go say, we need like a cat man. And,
Well,
you know,
Mark Dacascos was the leopard in the remake. And that dude,
he's a good guy.
yeah, he's fantastic, man.
Yeah. He's a good dude.
And he
Yeah.
can do all that shit.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's put it in his hands. You know what?
All
He could
that
probably
John
direct
Wick
the movie
shit,
too.
all that
You know,
John Wick shit, he can do.
he can do that. Yeah. He can do that. And he's agreeable to have around. He's a good guy on a set.
Yeah.
Mark came through the studio here and with Adrian Paul and I, and he had confessed that one of his early jobs was young Conan in the Universal Stunt Show, which also I think featured Gary Casper, an actor stuntman I worked with. Yeah, he was, and Al Leong, I think from Big Trouble in Little China. I think they were all on the Conan the Barbarian stunt show. And you know what? Oh my God, it all ties together. The snake was designed and production of that was supervised by former Disney Imagineer Bob Gurr, who invented the monorail, designed it.
Sorry,
He didn't invent it. I apologize. He designed it.
The swarm and all that stuff. Do you remember the movie?
Is that the snake one? No, but I think I remember the title, but I don't remember the movie. So what?
I don't remember the movie, but I just remember.
Yeah.
And that's a whole other genre. Remember, there was killer frogs, killer bees.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
like all of them was like the insect.
Oh, so here's one for you, brother. So yeah, there was a bunch of animal apocalypse movies, but I walked into his family, Dan Truly's house, producer of Law and Order, SVU, Blue Bloods, and on one of his walls is a massive, and I mean massive poster for the movie Grizzly. Do you remember that one where the grizzly bear is tearing apart the park?
Oh, okay, no.
Oh God, who was the guy in it?
Grizzly. That one.
Christopher George. Christopher George was the star of it. Night of the Grizzly. Look, Abominable Snowman movies. I'm in, man. I buy into those every time. I love that concept. I did a concept like that for Seagal. I pitched that to him, and we were going to do it, where he was like the master sergeant of a rescue unit. But I buy into all of that stuff. Give me any kind of animal apocalyptic scenario you can do, within reason. Within reason. But I'm sure you got a couple of favorites. So, all right. So we're gonna look at the Swarm. What else you got up your sleeve?
The Night of the Grizzly, Clint Rocker, and the bad guy in that. Can't remember his name now. Oh God, I loved him. And he went on to write for 12. And he was working on a movie with John Wayne. Maybe we've talked about this, but John Wayne gets shot, and he's, as an actor in the back, kind of goes, "That's not how you would react." And John Wayne's like, "How the fuck do you know?" He goes, "Because I was shot that way. I did time in the joint because I robbed the bank, and I got shot on the way out." And John Wayne was like, "You're not my guy." And he's got beautiful face, like he's got a character and a voice, but it's not Night of the Grizzly. And it's a grizzly bear that just terrorizes this small town that Clint Walker shows up with his family. But they don't, I don't know, it was maybe in the 60s. There's no special effect bear. So every once in a while, they just see this bear lumbering across in the night, but it's like, there's no, but you'll see that, there's a field of cows. It's that great moment where there's dead cows everywhere, and someone has that line of saying, "He's not doing this because he's hungry. He's sending a message, right? He's doing this."
He said,
it's like, Night of the
He's
Grizzly. And
yeah.
it was the famous one too, I remember as a kid, because they're tracking him and the grizzly comes back around on them. And it's like,
Right.
ooh, and he's intelligent too. And Clint
Yeah,
Walker, other dude.
I love when like the anthropologist or the character equivalent has deduced that it's not really about natural habit, but it's there's something more to
Yeah.
what's happening here.
What's
Like,
the the Samuel Jackson shark movie? When
oh
it's
yeah, oh I was there for it.
shark in the
Deep Blue
brain.
Sea.
Yeah. One of the best
Yeah,
moments too is Sam Jackson. Now listen, everybody. Da, 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 da. Oh, like,
yeah,
oh, fuck, John.
yeah. I was at Warner Brothers for that, and that production ran into some trouble. I can't really recall some of my early days why, or if Rennie Harlan was actually the replacement on that, or if it was his problem all along. I can't recall. But I'll ask the powers that be around that because we should look at Deep Blue Sea. It's just such a classic, and none of us can live without watching that movie every once in a while, right? But what's the movie you had me going about? Oh, Clint Walker. All right. So Clint Walker, the only way this scenario would have been better is if it starred Richard Roundtree. But Clint Walker and Bronson teamed up on an animal apocalypse movie. So Clint Walker and Charles Bronson teamed up on an animal apocalypse movie, which was White Buffalo. You remember that, based on a book?
Okay. Long time.
And
I can't remember anything about it. I have to
yeah,
go to that one too.
it's unfortunately shot a lot on sets that don't quite convince you, and they focus a little too much on the buffalo for you to buy it. But Will Sampson is in it as Crazy Horse, I think. And if I'm not mistaken, Bronson plays Hickok, but Hickok under another name because he's tired of being harassed. So, and Clint Walker shows up too. White Buffalo, folks. Yet another classic unearthed
What
here on Combat Radio for you.
my son and I years ago, where there was a crocodile movie that came out. The crocodiles at the bottom of the house in the flood, and we
Yeah.
were killing ourselves laughing because it was just, smart crocs.
I remember Ian Ziering came through the studio and he was talking Sharknado with us. And look, he's a jobber, right? He takes the job as everyone should. I mean, only 2% of our union, has the right to choose their work, so to
Yep.
speak. So he took the job. The movie makes a ton of money. He does the sequel, but he bulked it like Sharknado 4 or something because they got so cheap on the deal, I guess, is how I remember it, that he just didn't want to do it at that point. But what's funny is you would think if they start making money that they would start actually saying
Thank you.
thank you to their actors,
Yeah.
you know. But he actually had some pretty good apocalyptic movie ideas of his own. I don't want to say him here because he may be developing them, but he's a guy like much like yourself who's like, hey man, the phone rings.
Yep.
What day do I start? See you.
I remember one
You know?
point I got asked on an EPK. I did the barber and doing the news kit or whatever, and they said, what what made you decide to take this role?
Yeah.
They offered it to me.
Right. I have this thing called a landlord.
I auditioned, and they said the role is yours.
Yeah.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'll never forget having dinner with Jeff Fahey, and somebody asked him in the bar, why did you do this movie, a certain movie? And his response is, if you have to ask me that, you don't understand the business.
Yep.
And you make what you want out of Jeff Fahey. I always thought he was a decent guy to be around. I know the people have had their challenges with him, and he and Gary Busey were rumored to not be allowed on a set together at the time for whatever reasons between the two of them. But
Busey's a fucking douchebag.
I've had my challenge. Well, we had both of them attached to the same movie when I was at Warner Brothers, and the first thing I had to do was kind of navigate how it was going to go schedule wise, because we met with Fahey to be the villain, and we met with Busey to be an overzealous SWAT captain. So I didn't realize the two couldn't. I was told by an outside source in the Fahey camp they can't be on the set together. Last time they did a movie, they had to do it to a tennis ball, and it was cut together. So I get him on the phone, Fahey, and just say, hey, is this the situation? Because if it is, fine. I just want to know so we can plan. I don't give a fuck about the personalities here. I just want the job done. So he got more upset that somebody told me that. But I actually told him, I'm actually glad I was told, and don't get mad at that guy because that guy saved us a major catastrophic headache by telling us. So all we got to do is figure out now how we're going to do it. I don't care. No, and what it was ultimately is I think more often than not, Busey remained in situations like that, and Fahey did not in the cast, is what I was later told. Now I don't know if that's true. I don't know, and honestly, what can I say about it? I just don't know. But I remember
I
being
think
at the
DC should be reduced to just playing stroke victims.
man, he's an example of I think, if you're crazy to begin with, which I think he was, and then you amplify that with a lifestyle and then have some bad moments, motorcycle related, the crazy becomes almost unbearable, I think, for some people. It's just hard to keep a lid on it. But I was at Duke's in Malibu for brunch, and my wife goes, "You got to call Gary Busey. I know he lives up the street. I've always wanted to meet him. Can you call him? Can we go up and say hi real quick?" And I'm like sitting there going, talk about, yeah, talk about lighting up my Sunday afternoon. I mean, here I thought I was just going to walk on the beach, hang out, say hello to a few friends, and now I got to go up and introduce you to Gary. Now, when you go up to Gary Busey's house, he always leaves his front door open. And that's how it's the one with I don't want to say what house it is or what identifies it. The front door is always open. And that's because he's got like this hallway to the living room, which overlooks the ocean. But on the way there's all these rooms. There's a bedroom that way, there's a bathroom that way, and there's a hallway. And the reason his front door is open, I think, is so he can climb up on the furniture and jump down and surprise his guests like Kato in the Pink Panther. So when I get up there and the door's open, I stay out like a police officer. And I'm like, "All right, Mr. Busey, come on out with your hands up," basically. I have my kid with me and she's like 3, and I had to kind of warn him. I'm like, "Okay, Gary, I got my daughter with me." And he climbs off like an armoire behind one of the walls and hops down. And I was like, "Oh, okay, come on in." And he's got like the Steeler game on and he got into that. But it's kind of a weird, like, welcome to my house. I'm going to jump off the furniture and scare the living shit out of you. But there's Gary Busey.
Mark Dacascos over.
Yeah, well, I'd work with Mark Dacascos any day of the week.
Yep.
You don't even have to ask. I'd be happy to see that guy show up on a set, honestly. He's one of the better ones. If you can get Ratchford and Dacascos, I am there every time.
Yep.
Talk about a cast made in heaven in terms of working relationships. Done.
Yep.
You would play the grizzly prison warden, and he'd be the prisoner you have to throw in the hole because he's dangerous and maybe didn't commit the crimes he's accused of, but the corrupt senator back in Washington calls you because you owe him a favor, and he's put that guy in the hole, make sure that prisoner disappears. Yeah. And then all of a sudden he goes in the hole. His name comes off the prison jumpsuit. The name is removed from the cell, and he's in there, and that thing closes, and it's welded shut. And that's where he stays until he's ready to bust his way out. Prison Fury.
But I start doing some
research. Mark Dacascos.
That he was wrongly accused.
Right. You start going through the file jacket. And then the villainous role shifts from you to like your top sergeant, who's like, "Well, I don't like that guy because he's not one of us."
Yeah.
And you're like, would you start to calculate? Maybe there's more to this guy than what Senator Jenkins back in Washington would have us believe. He is on that construction prisoner work detail appropriation bill. Maybe we ought to look into this. And then, of course, there's other prisoners who also can relate.
George Kennedy, though.
Yeah, George Kennedy. So George Kennedy's in this, but now who is George? Well, see, George Kennedy's passed away.
Wayne Duvall.
Wayne Duvall. There you go. There you go. There's a group of actors out there that are fit for any job. They're that skilled, but always are great in these roles. Yep. You know what I'm thinking? Mark Ralston is one of them. Shawshank Redemption. Rico Ross is another one. Aliens. You, of course. There's actors that can do Shakespeare, but for some reason the phone always rings when it's like, "I need a guy working the KP detail at San Quentin. You're the guy." All right, I'll send you in I'll videotape my audition. Here we go. Who are we thinking about? Anyway, by the way, I saw a Faye Dunaway movie.
Oh,
I don't want to say which one because I'm really not a fan of hers, but it happened to be on. And I thought of that story that Richard Harris told you about Faye Dunaway, and we won't get into it here because it's not the most decent story. But I want to thank you, Ratchford, for now I can't see a Faye Dunaway movie without that story popping
yeah.
into my head about Richard Harris and Faye Dunaway. Anyway, so what else is going down? Airport 70. They never did an airport 1980.
Nope.
That's the one where Marine One goes down with the president in the Potomac. Right? That's that one.
You know what though? Like when you think about it, with well, you see the capabilities of the Navy back then, and
Yeah.
you think about what it is now. Like we should be able to come up with a scenario. And go, hey, do you guys want to promote the Navy lifestyle? We need something epic, bigger
Mhm.
than Top Gun 2 or whatever the fuck that was.
Yeah.
Star Wars on Top Gun.
And the Navy's thrilled about it because their enlistment goes up, and rightfully so. I mean, they do these things for real. I mean, that was the best thing about Airport 77 for me is watching the Navy actually mount the rescue.
Yep.
I mean, I was
Well,
kind
now
of
they got
past.
guys that jetpack from boat to boat. It's like, what the fuck? Get that in the
I
movie.
know. I know. Isn't that awesome? Man. But they stopped making airport movies, and I'm surprised. I don't know why. You know what? I don't think Boeing appreciated it at the time.
Mm.
Don't you think like the airlines, United, they
Yeah,
probably were pissed
stop
off
doing
about
that. You're
these
scaring
movies?
the shit out of people.
Yeah, because I do think honestly, the airport movies convinced people where they could to do things like take the train, and that's probably why we still have Amtrak, defunct as it is, because people were like, "Fuck it, I'm not going."
I'd take the train any day. I love the
Yeah,
train.
I like the train too. So this brings us to another movie that's quite a sort of semi disastrous, but more conspiratorial, which is Capricorn One.
Okay.
Have you seen that one?
It's been so long, but I think I put that on a list.
Come on, put
That
Capricorn,
title.
mark it down, baby.
Yeah.
Capricorn One is our next show. I'm kidding, of course. Directed by Peter Hyams. Let's jet. But I will tell you one thing about Capricorn One. It was immortalized on The Fall Guy because Michael Lang, director of X Files, Criminal Minds, Bones, one of our regulars here, he was tasked with second unit direction on The Fall Guy, and the way he handled it was he'd buy old movies like Capricorn One and cut them into the show
Oh,
for like the
nice.
stunt sequence. So when you see, when it's like Lee Majors is coming off a set doing a stunt on the Fall Guy, it was really like James Brolin and Capricorn One doing some sort of skydive or something. Anyway, all right, buddy, I'm gonna cut you loose since you got to go, but give me the last update with everything Jeremy Ratchford.
Just,
What's
yeah. Uh, I'm the gypsy, baby. Always looking for work,
yeah,
auditioning what I can, taking care of three boys, and
yeah.
yep, living the dream.
Well, what I will say about you, if anyone does a deep dive on Jeremy Ratchford, you are going to be amazed at the Shakespearean depth of this guy from movie to movie to movie. And a friend of mine is on Jersey Boys in Vegas, which is getting ready to kick off, I think at the Orleans or something. And I'm going out to see it. You were in the movie.
Yeah.
Maybe we could take you with us.
I got a great little for another time while we're doing Eastwood, but yeah, showing up on set with that, and Eastwood asked me for a very specific improv, and I was like, oh, I had to make this perfect. I have to make this perfect. It was fun.
Yeah, one of the actors that worked with him. I mean, you knew him better than most because you worked with him several times. But one of the actors told me one of his lines was, "If you need two takes, then I need a better actor."
Well, that's the other one, the focus one. The camera says we got to go again. He goes, why? They said we had a focus problem. What'd you see? He said, well, it's a horse riding through a valley. He goes, could you see the horse? Yeah. Did you know it was me? Moving
And
on.
why are we talking?
Moving on.
No, that's, Matt Damon always tells that Invictus story too, where on like take three, he goes, Clint, I got an idea. Can I try something? And Clint's response is, what? Now you want to waste everybody's time?
Was another one. Uh,
I
because that's
sat.
don't ever stop, right? Because he's used to working with horses. So you
Mm,
follow the line, keep going because you never know.
right.
And there was an actor that I heard on a staircase or something like this, but kind of went, oh, so back to first position. Da, da, da. Clint goes like this. Don't ever do that again.
No, and you shouldn't. I agree with him on that.
But you got to be told that because there's some guys that get so, so jammed up. It's just like, no, you know what? When you hear that, you got to go, just keep going,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, but you get some of the young ones. But even on The Unforgiven, we had some, young actors there that were just like almost hyperventilating, and it's just like, chill. And that's the other thing with Eastwood. Eastwood never gets mad at an actor. He'll get mad at a gun that fucks up or anything else, but he never gets. It's just like, just keep going, just keep going.
Yeah. No, you never stop a take. That's my position as well. You never stop it, no matter what. You don't know how it's going to come together, so you keep going.
Yeah.
And we'll fix it in post, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, more on Clint Eastwood coming up. We're going to look at Magnum Force and The Gauntlet, two of our favorites.
Yeah.
Tie in my old boss, Milius, who so he introduced me to Eastwood. 10-second story here. They were doing blood work on the Warner Brothers lot, and they'd taken like a lot of the production buildings and they'd redressed them to be these alleys for Jeff Daniels' character to run through. And it was up for like a week. And we were always wondering, we knew it was an Eastwood pick, but we didn't know a lot about it. Bloodwork was the movie. Kakai Umpa, I think, was actually the location guy on it, if I remember correct. And Milius lights up a cigar in his office at like 8 o'clock at night because we always worked late with Milius. And security comes up and tells him to put it out. Now, Milius, of course, resists because Milius doesn't like being told anything. So he's like, what? Who's here? And the security guy says, well, they're doing blood work. So the editorial's downstairs because Building 81, where we were based, Clint Eastwood had the first floor. We were upstairs with Chris Nolan, Wolfgang Peterson, the Warshawskis. And so Milius goes, well, let's go see him. And so we find him on the set of Bloodwork. It's a night shoot, and he's sitting there, and he introduces me to Eastwood. But Eastwood cuts it short because they're calling for him, and his line to me was, nice to meet you. I've got to go kill some people now. And I'm like, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Eastwood.
That was his first line to me. I walk up to him on the set of The Unforgiven. He's there with Hackman, Franny Fisher, and Harris. And I walk over, I say, hi, I'm Jeremy Ratchford. I'm playing Deputy Andy. Another deputy I gotta kill.
But aren't you so glad? Aren't you glad he greets you like that?
Yeah.
Doesn't that just take the edge off?
Out of the gate.
Yeah.
Like, fuck. I got Eastwood.
Yeah. I mean, he said the same, basically his version of the same thing to me. I got to go kill some people now. And I was just like, it's one of those moments. And Milius is like, looking around going, there you go. There he is.
Yeah.
We're out of here.
Yeah.
Those two together, though, Eastwood and Milius, man, were like it's like two little mischievous kids, though. You could sense it. Like they wanted all this to be over so they could just get together and have fun,
Yeah.
Anyway. God bless you, Jeremy Ratchford. I'm gonna push stop on the show. Unless you got something else, because you got to work out.
Yeah. I'm good.
And Gauntlet's coming your way. Magnum Force, Capricorn 1, and some other. Maybe we'll even do Grizzly, but we got to look at the Swarm and other.
Yeah, I got a bunch I want to watch now. It's so much fun.
I know. Now we got a bunch of shit we got to go through. God, this is our doom. This show is our doom. All right, buddy. I'll speak to you soon.
All right, brother. Love you.
Love you too.